What's up, Des Moines? Another episode of, what's our podcast? Invitation by Invictus. Today's guest is Ryan Irwin of, is it Natural Bodybuilding?
Well, there's a few different entities, but Impact Action Coaching is where I would start.
Right. Okay. So Impact Action Coaching. So I met Ryan at the second Women's Barbell Classic.
That's right.
I think you had a client or two, maybe that was participating, and Wes Keith introduced us, and then Abby was like, "Oh yeah, I know Ryan," and so I met Ryan like almost 2 years ago. And then I personally reached out to Ryan after a client reminded me that he'll be working with Ryan back in early December.
Sounds right. Yeah.
So Ryan is my food, nutrition, workout coach. So I look at it like, at least for me, you know, I like to spend a lot of my time working on the Invictus stuff. And then when it comes to the nutrition, the food, the workouts, I would rather have an expert. And I just want to just go on autopilot, do what I need to do to make it through the day. Because as a small business owner, it's so much.
Absolutely.
So Ryan owns Impact Action Coaching, and he also runs the Natural Bodybuilding Show.
Yep.
Correct?
Yes.
And isn't that usually isn't that mostly in May?
Yeah, so it's usually in May in Des Moines. We actually, because of last year with the pandemic, we moved it to Cedar Falls and postponed it to August, which turned out fantastic. But so now this year we're actually going to have two. We're going to have the Des Moines in May like we normally do, and we're going to have a second one now in Cedar Falls because it went just amazingly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you'll have two every year moving forward now.
That's the plan. Yep.
Yeah. COVID really changed things up for you, huh?
Oh yeah. Like all of us. Yeah.
Great. So let's just kind of tell for the viewer that does not know who Ryan Irwin is, because I know Ryan's been around for an extremely long time.
A little bit.
Yeah, and people are like, it's almost kind of like they forget that you're there.
Yeah.
Tell us about where you kind of grew up, where where you went to school, and then how you got to like the whole nutrition thing.
Yeah. So ironically, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, I just published my first book that went through all of this. So it's really fresh in my head to kind of go through it. But, so I'll give the high level version. I grew up a scrawny kid, sickly kid, scared kid. And I go through that in the book. But then I found bodybuilding. And it just took me in and transformed my life, and in ways that I didn't even anticipate. And so I started out as a competitor. I started in high school, so I've been doing bodybuilding for almost 30 years. And had success with it, enjoyed the process, got involved on the sports side of things through promoting, getting involved in the organization, and then doing all of that on the side while I was doing, other business, career things. And I found that I'm like, hey, this is an opportunity for me to do something that I love. And so I got into, I opened a retail store. We had a training studio in there, and that's where I found coaching.
So the retail store was what?
Nutrisport.
And where was this at?
So it was in Clive.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's how you and Wes originally teamed up, right?
Yeah.
And what year was that?
Oh man, that was like, when
did you open the store?
Yeah, so it was like 2003-ish, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Somewhere around there.
And then, so you opened Nutrisport, and then so you had supplements, and then the coaching side of things started coming into it as well.
Yeah, it just kind of organically manifested itself.
That's awesome.
And at that point, it's like, that's when I knew what my calling was. It's like, this is what I was born to do. And so, had the nutrition, had the training studio, the retail, the supplements, and the coaching. And I really felt that was my calling. And so, we had the location for about 10 years. And then it was at that point, it's like, okay, I need to transition into what I was meant to do. And I really felt like my calling was. So that, after that, fast forward, then I worked in corporate America again for about 5 years.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I did that. Yeah. And I did the coaching on the side to get myself established.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I want to be able to build my business and design my business the way that I want it to run and what I want to do. And I want to be able to provide my clients with a level of service that I expect. And so for about 5 years, I was doing the coaching on the side, getting things established, getting set. And finally, about 2 years ago, I was able to, again, do it full time and be a full-time coach. So that's kind of like the Cliff Notes version of, what that history looks like.
So 2017 essentially is when you kind of walked away from corporate America and went full-time into the coaching.
Yeah.
And then how many clients do you have currently that you kind of juggle?
Yeah, so I'm sitting somewhere in that 60 to 70 range, in that area, and it's a full load. And I finally, like, when I resigned from my corporate job, I was sitting about 30, and I was like, okay, this is all I can take. It was a lot, and I was like, it was at that point, it was obvious. It's like it's time to make the change. It's time to make that leap.
Yeah, because you were working full time for what company were you working for?
As a renewable energy group up in Ames. So yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So you worked full time for them, and essentially you were doing full time coaching.
Yeah. Yeah. So I basically had 2 full-time jobs there at the end.
Yeah.
So yeah. But that's how I wanted to do it. Back when I had the store, I just jumped in with both feet. My ears were barely wet, and I just like, hey, let's go.
Yeah.
And it worked out great, learned a lot and all that. But now it's like, okay, I was in the driver's seat, and I could do this the right way and do it differently. And so that's why I wanted to make sure that I was ready to pull a trigger and have a product and a business that was what I wanted it to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's kind of talk about like that coaching environment that you offer.
Yeah.
For if somebody's out there and they're looking for that change or they're looking for that accountability.
Sure.
Like one of the things that I like about you is that you're extremely personable.
Oh, thank you.
And you're super humble. So it's like I can come in there and I can like pretty much lose my shit.
Yeah.
And you just be like, okay. So like you take me as I am, and then you just try to, you take all of my weaknesses, and then we just work through them one by one.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
So so for somebody that's out there that does not know what impact action coaching is, let's talk about like the first interaction to the steps that go with it.
Absolutely. So I think that it hinges on my experiences starting out in the sport of natural bodybuilding so young. As a teenager, and having worked through all of these phases of my life, and being able to incorporate it. Through school, high school, college, babies, kids, career, all that stuff, business owner. And so I think that it's given me a unique advantage that I can relate to a lot of different people because of that. Yeah. And certainly my goal is not to create everybody to become a bodybuilder. That's not it at all. But the process is very similar because it's all about body composition, healthy metabolism, lifestyle. And at the end of it, it's what does that individual, where do they want to take it? And I, again, going back to the book, that's what I drill down into my book. It's about habits and lifestyle and meshing those things together.
Yeah.
And so when I'm working with an individual, we spend a lot of time, going through their questionnaire and really digging into the why and what they want, and I'm looking for things that like step out at me, like, okay, there's an opportunity that we need to address. These are things that we need to do against the lifestyle stuff, and then we put it in the framework of the nutrition and the fitness to then help direct people to that goal, whatever it is.
Because I remember speaking with you the first time, I made it very clear I'm not trying to do a show.
Right.
So I think I wouldn't say it's like a stigma, but a lot of people think that you just work with bodybuilders because you come from that environment. Sure. It's not necessarily the case for you.
Yeah, no, about 35% of my clientele are competitive bodybuilders. Yeah. And so, but again, the premise and the training basis and the nutrition basis, very similar. It's just what that individual's goals are.
Yeah. So 35% are competitors, and then the other 65% are basically schmoes like me that need help in their nutrition and lifestyle choices.
Yeah. I prefer Gen Pop, but whatever you want to call it. But what's funny is then I've worked with clients for years, and goals change. And sometimes, unbeknownst to me, they'll come out and say, you know what, Ryan, I kind of would like to do a competition. I'm like, oh,
just
okay.
out the blue?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm like, I don't know how long that's been festering, probably for a while, because it takes a while for somebody to actually commit to that. And that's great, but then, when I do work with competitors, just like with my, lifestyle clients, I mean, it has to fit your life. I mean, it's like, you don't want to have tunnel vision. I mean, you have to have focus, you have to work hard, but you can't neglect all those other things, along the way.
Yeah.
And I really, really enjoy working with first-time competitors, so I can help them go into it with eyes wide open. Yeah. It's like they see this big shiny object that they want to get. It's like, okay, yeah, but you can't just run straight through it and just leave everything else in the dust. So because from a health perspective, I mean, you have to do it in a healthy way. Mm-hmm. But also, my goal is for people to enjoy the process so that they hopefully want to do it again someday.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So you meet with them initially, and then you go through this extensive questionnaire.
Yep.
And then you just, that's generally, 90 minutes that you set aside that time. Yeah. Then you go through their measurements.
Yep.
And you take their pictures because you look at, that's the best way to measure your progress.
Right. Yeah. And I meet with clients in person or virtually, and I either, like you said, take those measurements, those pictures myself, or I coach them to do it for me. That way we can because I'm big on metrics. You got to have those metrics so you can check progress.
Yeah.
And because to me, everybody focuses on one thing, which is the scale.
Yeah.
And it can be so misleading. And we watch it, but we want to get in all the other, data that we can monitor and make sure things are happening.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I mean, then, have them do that and send that to me virtually if we're meeting, online. And so.
Okay. And then what's the next steps after the initial the evaluation?
Yeah, initial assessment. Where after we do that, and then I take all that information and I put it together, and I give them a specific program to them. The nutrition guidelines. I would call myself a flexible nutrition approach, where I give them macronutrients, grams of protein, carbs, and fat. And then examples of how I would recommend that they hit that based on their preferences and their schedule. But at the end of the day, they can make those choices, which I think is very empowering and helps people with, staying with it. And then also, the training program. I mean, I've got clients that train at home. I've got clients that train in commercial gyms. I've got clients that their home gym is very exquisite. Some of it's very simple. Some people can train 3 days a week, 5 days a week, and so I customize it to whatever their lifestyle enables them to do, and then also that it matches up with what they want to accomplish.
Yeah.
So.
And then what happens after that? You meet with them again in 4 or 5 weeks? So
actually, the initial week is very important. I have found, making sure that I administer all my programs through apps, so make sure that they're off and running. They've got their macros figured out, they've got their workouts figured out. They're off to the races, as I like to say, and they've got things in place, so that way they're not getting frustrated. I don't expect perfection; it's not going to happen. It's steps, especially if we're making some big lifestyle changes. So I'm making progress, and then they touch base. They check in with me at least once a week. I tell clients I give them as much as they give me. Some are like, they barely, I see them once a month, and that's cool. That they're good. They get the more marching orders and they're gone. And then there's some I talk to very frequently, and it's all about them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, then each month, then we go through those metrics again. Look at the numbers, look at the graphs, make sure progress is happening in all aspects, so we can get a very clear picture on, are we on track? And then we talk strategy about, okay, what's the next step? We're going for these short-term goals, but let's make sure we're on the right path for the long term.
Okay. And then you put them through 3 phases, correct? Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3.
Yep.
So what's the difference between each phase, so that, the consumer understands that it's not just kind of like a one and done, right?
Absolutely.
It's some time, it's some effort to see those physical changes as well as those mental changes.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's not a quick fix. People will see results fast, but it's not like, okay, it doesn't happen real fast. So the first phase is what I call metabolic optimization. So basically it's a fancy way of saying we're making sure that your body's metabolism is working the way it should. You know, if somebody comes to me and let's say they're eating 900 calories a day on average, you know, they've got 40 pounds of body fat to lose, and they can barely eat the food that they're already eating. Okay. Yeah. They got some issues. They got some things that we have to address to get their body primed and ready to do what we want it to do.
Yeah, 900 calories is really low.
And it is. And I use that as an extreme example because that is low. But I mean, even, you know, most of the time people undereat, you know, and it's often what happens is they undereat 70% of the time, maybe 80% of the time. Then they go over on that 20 to 30%. And then they see what happens to their body and they freak out, and so they undereat again. And it's a vicious cycle. Mm-hmm. But once we get them in the right routine where they're eating the right things at the right times and the right amounts, their body works good. Yeah. And things start happening and their metabolism gets better. Yeah. And then what we do is that's that first phase, is kind of seeing what we need to do to get them in a right state for the second phase. Mm-hmm. Now that first phase, they will see progress, they might lean out and things like that. But then the second phase is when we've got your body in the state we want it to be in. Now we can focus on, okay, let's work on recomposition, which is just a fancy way of keeping muscle and losing body fat, or whatever their goals are. And then at that point, you know, we get them to that composition that they want to achieve, that ideal body, if you will.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the second phase. And then the third phase is, call it maintenance, long-term, you know, and what that is like, okay, now that we've got your body composition where you want, we've got your metabolism where it needs to be, let's keep it to a point where, you know, you can sustain it throughout the rest of your life, you know, and allow you to, you know, go on a vacation or, you know, not worry over the holidays, or, hey, I need a break this week. Things like that, you know, life's crazy. You're not going to fall off the horse. Mm-hmm. And that way they can sustain that long term. And that's the goal. That's the lifestyle goal of where we want to get to.
Each person's different. Mm-hmm. Each person's metrics are different. Yep. There's really no timeline to this. And that's another misconception is like, you know, I need to do this in 6 months.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it depends on the individual, you know, and I don't, you know, lock people into a long-term contract or anything like that. Maybe I should from a business standpoint, but I feel that this is a lifestyle. This is a long-term thing. Mm-hmm. And when I'm having initial conversations with an individual, I want to make sure that's the mindset they're in. You know, this isn't like you said, it's not a quick fix. You know, it's about, okay, what are the long-term permanent results? I want somebody to, you know, I run into them at, you know, the store, you know, 3 or 5 years from now, and they still look fantastic. That's where we want to be. Whether it's somebody who's, you know, been on stage and they got to that really high competition level, mm-hmm. And they were able to get out of that and still be able to sustain things and still function, or somebody who just, you know, finally got their body to work for them and they're able to sustain it on their own. That's the end goal. Yeah.
And doesn't matter. Age doesn't make a difference, right? Because there's that other thing where people think, well, I'm getting older and you know, my metabolism's, you know, going to crap.
And honestly, I think, like, I mean, I work with all different, you know, ages and you know, both genders, but like the older population that haven't been working out consistently, those are the ones where I'm like, this is going to be fun, because their body is going to respond, especially women. You know, when a female starts weight training, they haven't yet, you know, maybe they've just been cardio bunnies or whatever stuff. And the way their body responds and how you can see it and then they can feel it, you know, hormones, just all kinds of stuff. It's amazing to see that. So I get excited when I see somebody who's never worked out. I mean, the key on that is getting those habits in place in the right manner so they don't get frustrated or whatnot. But we get that stuff to stick. It's awesome. It's magical. Yeah.
So how many clients have been with you for a long time?
Oh, man. My attrition rate, I actually, as I was crunching my numbers over this at the end of the year, is very low. I mean, I think I only have a 5% turnover, something like that. It's less than 5%.
That's amazing.
I keep, and that's how I want to run my business, you know. I do accept clients, but it's like by referrals. I mean, I'm not out there shopping or pushing like that.
No.
You know, as I want to keep the people that I have and treat them well, which not only helps from a business standpoint, you keep your customers, and that's how you run a good business, but then also then you get those referrals. And so it's like a win-win. And so I think my longest running client we're going on a decade now.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's
I think,
awesome.
Yeah. So I haven't crunched the numbers to say, okay, what's my average tenure, but it's years. So
yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So it's good.
And this client that's been with you for this long, did they start off as a competitor and then just slowly, you know, or are they still competing?
Yeah. So still competing. It's funny. It was like, I try not to be that weirdo, that stalker, but you know, I see somebody because of my background in bodybuilding, and I see somebody and like I go out of my way to say, you've got a good physique. If you ever thought about competing, I think you would do well.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, first it's kind of like, who's this weirdo? What do I need to call the police? And I'm careful about it because I get creepers and stuff, but I want to make sure that I express that. And so I think I talked to this individual for probably a year, and I had this, they would come into the store, and finally, just unbeknownst to me, I mean, we hadn't really had conversations, and then one day she walks in, she's like, okay, I'm ready. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, I'm ready to compete. Okay. And so, so fast forward 10 years, and, you know, she's done very well. She won her pro card. She's competed as a pro and done very well. So, yeah, it's been.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, for those that don't know how to get in touch with you, what's the best way to contact you to initiate a conversation? Because that's what we did.
Yeah.
We had a conversation at a coffee shop.
Yeah. I like to have either a phone call, usually a phone call, sometimes a video call. Just, it helps to get a lot more out of somebody, you know, and kind of, I want, again, going back to the why, I want to say, okay, what are their real goals? What's their real challenges? What are some things that, you know, we can work through? Because I'm honestly screening, because I want to make sure that they're in a good spot, you know, that this is going to work, you know, because nobody's perfect for everybody. It's just the way things are. And so start to do that process. But I like to have those calls because you can get through a lot, and who wants to email and text back and forth all the time.
Yeah.
But the best way to get a hold of me, man, there's so many different ways. I would say, you know, my website, impactactioncoaching.com. You can find me on Facebook. It all funnels to me. And so there's a lot of different ways. But those are the best ways.
Yeah. Okay. So website, Facebook, you have a personal Instagram.
Yep.
And then what's your personal Instagram?
Just at Ryan J. Irwin. Ryan_J_Irwin.
Okay. There you go.
Give me on YouTube, Twitter. You'll find me.
And on most social media channels today.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's very quick to respond. I will say that.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Because I was like, well, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
And then I think you responded within a couple hours.
Yeah.
So,
try to.
Yeah. Because I was like, hey, Ryan, I don't know if you remember me. So Impact Action Coaching, full-time.
Yep.
And then let's kind of talk about your natural bodybuilding stuff.
Yeah.
Are you still a part of the Natural Bodybuilding Federation?
I am.
Yep. What's your capacity or your role in that?
Yeah, so I'm actually the president of the organization now. So I've been involved in that federation, the NAMBF, for, like 2002, I think, and just started as a promoter, became a state director of Iowa, then I was the treasurer for many years, and then I think it was about 2 years ago, then I was elected president.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So I love the sport, and I love to grow it. I love what it does, what it's about.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we've got competitions all over the country, predominantly in the Midwest, but we're continuing to grow. And, you know, just again, to give natural competitors an avenue to compete in the sport.
Yeah, because I think in the bodybuilding realm, everybody always thinks that they're taking something.
Right.
Like some sort of steroid, some sort of SARM, whatever.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the natural bodybuilder is extremely unheard of.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's growing in leaps and bounds in popularity. And, you know, I think that it's an attainable goal. And I think that it gives somebody, it's amazing to see. There's some people that get into the sport like, I want my pro card. I want to compete on that level. And we offer that. We now have a professional federation. Competitors are competing against other, high level caliber physiques for prize money. But then a lot of times this is just a goal for somebody to step on stage and get out of their comfort zone and, get to a different level that they haven't been at.
Right. Yeah. So. Yeah. Like, it's not easy by any means.
No, it's not. But it's also, it's attainable. I think that's why natural bodybuilding is so popular, is because it is attainable. It's healthy, and it's something that, you don't have to do a bunch of damage to your body, or it's not temporary. I'm not taking away from anybody who chooses to, go the enhanced route. But the reason that I stay natural all these years is because at the end of the day, I want to come out of it and look like, hey, looks like how he went into it. The guy works out. I see the effects of enhancements, and then afterwards people come off of that stuff, and it really takes a toll, and then
it wrecks their body.
It does, and
as well as their mental capacity.
Absolutely, yeah. And so that was not appealing to me, and so I wanted to develop myself as much as I could push naturally, so I can hang on to it, over time.
Because again, there's that stigma of bodybuilders, you'll ruin your body.
Right.
Or I think Abby and I, we watched this show of, I can't remember his name, but Ronnie Smith maybe.
Oh, Ronnie Coleman, probably.
Ronnie Coleman,
yeah.
And that dude is like on crutches, and he can barely walk and function without, like, he medicates himself throughout the day to make it.
Yeah.
But then the guy still turns around and goes and, like, I don't know, hack squats like 800 pounds.
Right.
Like, it's nothing. So, I mean, it's almost kind of like he's like, I have to still work out like I'm a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that happens at all different levels, and, at some point we have to say, okay, what do I need to do to maintain health, but yet still get the results that you want. And that looks different for everybody, and certainly he's an extreme case. And when you start adding enhancements and things like that, it just propagates it even more.
Yeah, because he was Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
How many times?
Oh gosh, I want to say it was 8 times, something like that.
Yeah,
so
it's only ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was known for his crazy heavy training too. I mean, he wasn't like I'm going to do my machine workout and high reps and stuff. I mean, he would throw a lot of weight around. So.
Sure, yeah, it was a Netflix series that we watched, or a Netflix documentary.
Yeah. Yep.
And they would show old images, whether it was old videos or old pictures of him literally squatting, 600, 700 pounds. Like, it was nothing.
Right.
I watched Zach the other night at 22nd Street.
Yeah.
Squat, I think he said 7 something.
Yeah.
And I made a joke. I was like, Zach almost came over and pushed you out the way and took over the rack. There's no way I would be able to do anything like that. And then, I've seen, I haven't seen, but Abby's told me an extreme case where they're at a USAPL meet, and this guy broke both his kneecaps, squatting just 600 pounds.
Yeah.
So it's like, where's the happy medium in all of this?
Yeah. And I think that, again, going back to the individual, it's trying to figure that out, and so I've got clients that have had joint replacements or damaged on certain things, and we work around that, Again, it's what has to be sustainable. I mean, I've had a shoulder surgery, I've had another injury, I've had injuries. You just figure, okay, what can I do? What can I get away with? But doesn't push me over that limit. Gets close maybe sometimes.
Yes.
Without going over.
Yeah. So it's just understanding those hindrances and how to work through them.
Yeah.
Modifying when needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And the same goes back to bodybuilding. I mean, same with the nutrition. You got to push yourself to that certain level, but you want to stay healthy and you want to keep the body going and having it work for you. But yet, what's attainable and where do you want to go? And every time you compete, you get better and you push yourself a little bit more.
Got it. The bodybuilding shows, for if I was somebody that wants to compete, what's the best way to to get a hold of you or to find that information for those 2 shows?
Sure. So if you go to naturaliowamuscle.com, that's the competitions that I put on, the Natural Iowa and the Midwest Muscle Classic.
Got it.
But you could also go to nanbf.org, or sorry, .net, and that's like the federation.
Right.
But if you just do a search on Natural Bodybuilding Iowa, you'll probably find me.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then the first one is in May.
Yep.
And that's the one in Cedar Falls.
No, that was actually here in Des Moines. Yeah, Hoyt Sherman Place.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Hoyt Sherman.
Yep.
And then the one in August is in Cedar Falls, and that's at where?
It's at the BN Event Center. BN Event Center. Yeah, in Cedar Falls. Yeah, it's actually September 11th this year.
September.
So, yeah, okay. September 11th. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, because we actually have a client that's going to be competing in the one in September, right? Quentin Vars.
Yes.
And then he'll actually be working with you on the nutrition, a little bit of nutrition, and as well as, I don't know if you're going to be writing his programming and then as well as you're going to help him with his posing,
the whole gamut. And I'm excited to, and I think it'll be fantastic. I love that you guys are doing this with him because I think it's going to give a very unique perspective on what does it take to be a natural bodybuilder. What's that process look like? And how, even though, yes, you push yourself to these levels and see Quentin's a very dedicated individual. I mean, to see
very
what
much so.
He does, it's going to be, he's a perfect example for this, but what somebody can become doing these things. So if you want to check out Quentin Vars's story, it's actually, it's going to be a 10 episode series on YouTube where we follow Quentin and his journey through bodybuilding. He actually owns a gym in Cherokee, Iowa, and so it's about finding the balance between everyday living and then trying to compete. But Quentin's a unique specimen because he's been in the world of bodybuilding, and his mentor was what was Ralph? He was. I think it's either Mr. Universe or Mr. America, many years ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What was he, Hunter?
Yeah.
Mr. Universe back in like the 60s.
Yeah.
So, because Quentin actually has these really cool old pictures of Ralph on magazine covers, and it's crazy how like, like that piece of history is right there. So Quentin grew up in that environment, and we spent with him last weekend, I would say close to 24 hours, minus the maybe 8 hours that we were at the hotel sleeping, and then back at it again first thing in the morning. And Quentin's, he's so far different than your regular average Joe competitor. We were talking to him while he was eating, and he showed us how he eats. And he's like, I've been eating like this for years. And I was like, Quentin, how long? And he's like, probably like, what did he say? Like middle school? High school?
Probably
high school. Yeah, he's been eating like a bodybuilder since high school. And he's in his early 30s now. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think that being a bodybuilder, and I had this conversation with a lot of people, it lends you to a certain type of lifestyle. I see a lot of entrepreneurs are bodybuilders. I see a lot of people that, go out and, kind of push the envelope and things like that, because I think that you have to have a certain mindset to do that sport. You're walking up on stage and, this little thong thing in front of hundreds of people. You're fully exposed and you're like, okay, here it is. I'm going for it. And all the dedication and work that it takes to that, I think that a certain type of person then is drawn to that. And again, gym owners, business owners, just all kinds of things that tend to do those similar type of activities. So
it's just accommodating, like what you got going on and what you got, where you got to get to.
No, it'll be neat to see Quentin. And I saw Ralph compete. When I first got into the sport in the early 90s.
Oh, wow.
He was still just finishing up his career. So I actually saw him do 1 or 2 competitions, and I was fortunate enough to see that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that he's not around anymore because I would have loved to have a conversation with him.
Oh, yeah. He just, he's one of those guys who just lived it, breathed it, and then, but his legacy lives on and through Quentin and many others.
Yeah, because there were a couple of OGs that actually came into that gym.
Oh, yeah?
That, like this one guy, I think his name was Dan. He was like, I remember meeting Quentin when I was 18.
Yeah.
And working with Ralph. He's like, I actually trained Quentin for a little bit. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. He's like, and he was probably 10, 11.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's why I love talking to teenagers and just kind of getting them started and trying to give them some tools and give them some guidance and stuff like that. I mean, I love just doing that, and just so that you maybe plant some seeds, and pay it forward to see, okay, where are you going to be in 10 years? So.
I never got a chance to ask Wes Keith because, Wes is, 22nd Street, into powerlifting, all of that. What do you say to the parent that says, I don't want to put my kid in strength training or lifting weights because it'll hinder their growth? Because that is the number one, pushback. Because when I was in the training world, at Men's Health, it was mostly, no, I don't want to put my kid in this because I think, it'll ruin their growth, their growth plates, all that.
Yeah.
What do you say to parents that say that now? Yeah,
so your body is constantly developing. It's constantly progressing. It's part of growing up. I mean, the simple thing of learning to walk is those tendons and muscles and ligaments are strengthening and having structure. And so your whole life, you're getting stronger. Now, I mean, the key there is to do it in a way that's conducive to your development level. I mean, if you've got somebody who's super uncoordinated and they just, they can't tell their left foot from the right foot, then you need to start with some fundamental stuff.
Correct.
But there is not too early of an age to start strength training.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you take a toddler and you slip some weights in their toys and they have to play with some heavier toys, that's awesome because it's just going to help them get stronger.
Yeah.
And I think the careful balance here, and this is throughout life, is you don't get the cart in front of the horse. If you start doing complex movements or start going too heavy too quick, that's when issues occur. And that could be at any age. That could be at 13, that could be at 33.
Right.
So it's about just starting at that right level, and it's all about progression. I tell this to my clients, I don't care how much you max unless you're a competitive powerlifter. I'm focused on just progressing, getting better than you did yesterday, and that's how the body changes and adapts and makes progress.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
So when I squat 95, you're not going to judge me.
No, not at all.
Again, so the best way to get in touch with you is through website, which is Natural... Or Impact Coaching.
Yeah, Impact Action Coaching, is exclusively the coaching side, or Natural Iowa Muscle for the bodybuilding side. Obviously, there's tied together, so you find one, you're going to be able to find the other.
Okay.
So,
And then if I wanted to find your book, tell me what's the name of your book and how I can get a hold of it.
Yeah, it's Everyday Counts, Owning Your Life. And so you can go to either one of my websites. There's a link to my book. I can sell it that way. I can put a nice little note in there. Or it's obviously on Amazon as well, and you can get it off of Amazon too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And how long did this take before it finally came to fruition?
So it was about a 4-year process. And actually, 2 of those years was the time getting ready to go out of corporate America and to start my own business. So the things that I put in this book, besides my life story and kind of all the ahas and things that took me to where I am today, but the methods and the things that I did to structure my business, take care of my clients, and get myself to the point where I could be my own boss and do those things and structure things the way I did. So that's what the second half of the book is really all about. And again, it goes back to forming habits, setting goals, and then putting processes in place to attain those goals. So it's really kind of an umbrella for really anybody who just wants to say, you know what, I want to get better. I want to do something. I want to own my life, and this is kind of how to do it.
Okay.
So,
So it's not the trick on how to do your macros.
No. There is some nutrition and exercise sprinkled in there, but that is not the primary focus.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Again, the book is called what?
Everyday Counts.
By Ryan Irwin.
Yep.
So it can be fun. You can find it on your either websites.
Yep. And
as well as on Amazon.
Correct. Yep.
Excellent.
Yep.
Excellent.
Yep.
Well, Ryan, thanks for coming on. I appreciate the time that you gave. And then again, if you need to get in touch with Ryan, anybody that wants to have a solid coach, they're looking for accountability, they're looking for somebody to walk with them in their phases of nutrition programming, or if you want to be a competitor, please reach out to Ryan. Ryan is an amazing person. Like I said, he's probably one of the most humblest guys that I know, and he's going to work with you. And you're, for me, my high Guido personality, and help you get to that phase. So again, impactactioncoaching.com. And then Natural Iowa.
Yep.
naturaliowamuscle.com. Yep. And then, or you can always reach out to Ryan on Facebook or Instagram as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Jen. I really appreciate this opportunity, your platform, what you're doing here, and I'm excited to see where it goes and see what we can do.
Yeah, we're actually going to be at your place this weekend filming Quentin and getting his doing his whole evaluation.
Doing
all
the
over
whole questionnaire. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Get to see some of those poses. We'll see.
And Quentin is actually a return client.
Mm-hmm.
Because he competed in 2016.
No, I was 2000. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, that sounds right.
So, I mean, again, there's your attrition, your retention rate.
Yeah.
People may not be competing or may not be wanting the nutrition right now, but they always seem to come back.
Yep, I try and leave the door open.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Again, Ryan Irwin, Impact Action Coaching, Natural Iowa Muscle.
Yep.
And that, if you guys need to, if you're looking for that change, hit up Ryan. I highly suggest him.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. We out.